channel chat, and we're live. We're live. And I try to put it up on a podcast form on either Spotify, Anchor, so it's more digestible because I like long form Leeds content. We were just getting into Leeds origin fandom stories. So, but yeah, go ahead. We've got a special guest today. Jir is not with us. Unfortunately, he is catching up on some work during this World Cup break as he continues to keep up and running Leeds United, The View. Excellent channel. I always say it kind of cuts through a lot of the BS when you read, especially the rumor mill. And he just is able to get some really good content. He's also a UEFA B coach, so he understands some of the tactical side as well. And Michael is with me as usual. At Maynard M on Twitter. Please give him a follow. He is it's got legendary takes on everything from Leeds to a little bit of political content in there. Michael, you pepper that in as well, which is always good.
Occasionally
in this climate, Michael brought us a guest. So go ahead and introduce the guest.
Yeah. So I'd like to welcome Brendan Panikar to the podcast today. Welcome.
Yeah, I love the round of applause.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Brendan, I'll let you talk about yourself a little bit, but Brendan's a Canadian Leeds fan who became a fan. Like we were just discussing a little bit before we were promoted. It was back during the championship time under Bielsa. And I believe, Brendan, as well, you sort of came to us through your connections as a 49ers fan as well.
Yes.
There's a connection there too. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I know a little bit about you already, but why don't you tell everyone else a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, no, 100%.
And your sort of story of becoming a Leeds fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure to do this. Michael, you know this, but for you, Alex, I'm also a huge baseball fan. So I recently stopped after 4 years my Blue Jays podcast. So I am pretty used to the podcast scene. So this is the first ever time I've talked Leeds on a pod before. So this is pretty fun for me. But yeah, you kind of started going down the path there in terms of how I became a Leeds fan here in Canada, not far from where you're at, Michael, just on the other side of Toronto, the West End. But so I first became aware of Leeds, I want to say in 2016 or 2017, because at the time, I didn't know he would become my father-in-law, but my father-in-law is actually born in Rothwell, so just outside of Leeds. And he moved to Canada, I think, when he was 25 or 26, and has been living here ever since. And then obviously that led to my wife being born here, and then getting me on the radar of Leeds. But at the time, I was not really into soccer or football in general. Nobody in my family, like my immediate family, has ever been a fan of the sport, unfortunately. So that made it pretty easy to not follow soccer or football. I've dabbled in MLS and stuff like that, but so there was always that connection with the family, and knowing that my father-in-law was from Leeds, huge fan, and obviously would give me updates whenever we talked about sports and how Leeds were doing in the championship at the time. I remember the day he told me Bielsa was hired in 2018. He's like, this is going to be the man that takes us up. And sure enough, it ended up happening. But the first game I finally decided to watch in entirety was, I think it was New Year's Day. So January 1st, 2020, when they played West Brom and they tied 1-1. I think Leeds tied it up really late in the game. But after that, it kind of tailed off again. But my wife and I went over to England in February of 2020. So we snuck that in right before the pandemic. Didn't get to Elland Road at the time because I was still slowly warming up to fandom there, but I did catch a Chelsea and Spurs match at Stamford Bridge, which was really cool. First ever time seeing a Premier League game. And when we came back from that, I'm like, okay, I'm bought into this sport now. It's pretty exciting. I learned the ins and outs of promotion, all the different divisions of football, and how if you're bad, you could get relegated and how much of a penalty that is. So I'm like, all right, I'm bought in. Obviously, New Leeds were at the top of the table right around there and had a chance to get up to the Premier League. And so I watched, as we were talking right before going live, that Hull match and at the end of February when they won 4-0, and then the Huddersfield match 1-0. And then when the season shut down, that's when withdrawal finally hit. And I knew at that time that I was fully bought in and was counting down the days when they announced that the championship and the Premier League were coming back in 2020. And ever since then, unfortunately, but also very fortunately. I consider myself now to be a pretty diehard Leeds fan. A long-winded way of saying I'm a fan now.
Yeah,
No, that's
it's
fantastic.
addicting.
Hey, look, we all come to fandom in our own ways. I think I've talked about mine, my path to being a Leeds fan as well as sort of a teenager looking for, kind of in the same way, just looking for a team to get involved in, getting interested in the sport. Some of my friends were, thinking about my own family past and my mom from being from Leeds and stuff, and then sort of discovering Leeds that way. And then it's the same as you. Like once sort of you discover the team, once you sort of get stuck into it a little bit, it hooks in you. Like that's it.
Yes.
Like it gets into your soul and it never leaves.
Yes.
Whether that's for better or worse.
Yes.
once you're in, you're in. Alex, I think you've got a similar sort of situation, right? I mean, you became a fan back during the Gary Monk era, I think.
Yeah, they say, I guess they say the club chooses you, or you choose the club, something like that. The club chooses you, maybe, or something like that, or you it's kind of involuntary in a way.
Yeah.
And it fits my personality and a lot of my fandom, and I'm just so glad that I picked it. As you did. So you really did. So you kind of started during Bielsa era. You were following it a little bit, but really got bought into the Bielsa football.
Yeah.
An recent American fan goes, "Why is Bielsa God? Is it just because is it just because he got you promoted?" And I was like, I understand where you're coming from, but unless you watched, like, you can watch full games of the championship, the football was so amazing to see, and the way we were able to control the game with possession and constantly kind of attacking, and it just was like you would run teams off the field, that they were just so that you would go for 1 and 2 and 3 goals was just so amazing to watch. And I was so grateful for it. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's hard to explain to somebody that's like, why is Bielsa a God? Why do you, especially some of the new American fans that are brought in because of Jesse and the transfers. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It was the beautiful game, and obviously he had drawbacks and etc. And he wasn't an all a bed of roses, so to speak, for everything. But yeah, okay. So we're gonna focus on Elland Road today. This is a special place, and Elland Road stories and kind of that's one of the reasons I picked the club, was Elland Road. It had to kind of check some boxes for me when I was going to choose to follow an English club and football in England. And one of the huge pulls was Elland Road. And so I'm just going to read a little bit of kind of like the 5 W's and H of Elland Road. It's a football stadium in Beeston, Leeds, West Yorkshire. And it's been host to Leeds United since the club's formation in 1919. It is the 14th largest football stadium in England. It's hosted, obviously, FA Cup finals. It's been a venue for England international fixtures. Obviously, a lot of the club's history and the championships that happened under the Don Revie era. There are 4 stands: the Don Revie stand north, Jack Charlton stand, which is east, the Norman Hunter stand south, and the John Charles stand, which is in the west. The capacity of Elland Road is currently listed, according to Wikipedia, at 37,792. Has a record attendance, which is interesting, of 57,892, which was set on March 15th. 1967 in an FA Cup round against Sunderland. That's kind of like a little bit of the history of the club. I'm obviously not going to be doing all of it justice, but it's an old stadium. The fact that the football, I think the generational football of the players continues down the same. It's the same pitch. It's the same ground. It's the same. A lot of the places the players walk through are the same places the players walk through throughout the club's history. And it's just you could tell, and I've never been there. I'm full disclosure, I've never been to Elland Road. These two gentlemen have, which is why it's great to kind of dig in and pick their brains. Why it's so special and what makes it so special, because you can tell it is special on TV and in pictures. And obviously I can't wait for the day that someday I can go there. It's like a Mecca, so to speak. So let's just start with Brendan. Have you recently gone and just talk to me about the time that you've gone and you've spent at Elland Road?
Yeah, I was there about just over a month and a half ago when they played Fulham, unfortunately, because that was a 3-2 defeat, and they went down 3-1. The second goal from Somerville was a little bit in garbage time, of extra time. You knew it was going to be done. But I can tell you from being there, Leeds went up 1-0 early when Rodrigo had a header that went into the corner after Jack Harrison took a shot, got deflected up. And how bought in the stadium is and why it's so special is because you see these in the pictures that people post on social of the crowds going crazy, all the Leeds limbs, as they like to say on social. And not one single person ever has their phone out and are looking at something else. They're all looking at the pitch. They're all fully invested in the game. And I guess it's so special because it's, now that I've been there, it is a one club city. And you hear from time to time commentators, color commentators on Premier League TV, or I'm guessing in your case, Alex, Peacock, or whichever is broadcasting it in the US, that the color commentators feel it's so special because of that. There's no two teams. There's no Manchester derby. There's no Merseyside derby, anything like that. So it's Leeds. It's only Leeds. It's the only team there. And yeah, I think the fact that people are so bought in, no phones anywhere, they just want to be there. They care so much about their team. It's wild. It makes for a very unique experience. It's so different from North American sports, as I'm sure all three of us have been to, whether it's baseball or even NFL or hockey or basketball. People are always on their phones there. It feels like in North America sometimes that, especially for the Maple Leafs up here where Michael and I are at, it's a business meeting when people go to those games. They're not there to watch the game. They're there to talk business and, oh, yeah, they scored kind of thing. When you're at Elland Road, it is only about the game. They only care about the result. And so when they went up 1-0, super loud. But then when they went down, that's when it started to get toxic. So I experienced kind of both of it because when they conceded the third goal to Fulham, people were saying, F you, get out of here, Jesse out, and then booing the team as they were walking around and giving the clap. So I got to see it at its peak when they went up 1-0 early. Unfortunately, probably at one of its worst moments of the season when they went down 3-1. But I wouldn't change, other than wanting a result and 3 points, obviously, I wouldn't change the experience for the world. But I will say the next time I go over there, I'll be pretty upset if it's not a win.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you bring a really interesting point about Elland Road. That was my experience as well. There's a certain level of presence that's there. And when I say presence, what I mean is the people that are there at Elland Road experiencing the game are present for the moment.
Yes.
They're not thinking about, what are they going to post on Instagram later? Right. They're not worried about tweeting out about what they're seeing at the game. Yes. I mean, of course, there are some people that are there and will do that, but the majority of the fans that are there are present in the moment and focused on what's happening and focused on supporting the team, or booing the team as the case may be in some cases. And that does contribute, I think, to the incredible atmosphere at Elland Road, is the fact that everyone is there and invested all the time. We don't have a lot of tourists in the sense of, I mean, both you and I, when we've gone to Elland Road, are technically tourists, but we're there to support the club. We're not just there for like sort of the general touristy experience. Whereas, when we go to other, if we go to other games at other clubs, we're not going to be invested in the same way. And I think that a lot of other clubs have a significant amount of either their fans or people who aren't necessarily fans, but are going because it's a big name club or whatever, that are going. And I think that does sort of detract from the atmosphere at some other places.
I'd 100% agree with that. Because when we went over there as well on bookends of the game, the day prior, I was at Everton Crystal Palace. And I was on my phone quite a bit during that too, just taking a look at it, taking pictures of the players on the pitch and tweeting along, but also checking my FPL team because I had a Wobie on Everton and he had his best game of the season. So I got quite a bit of fantasy points there. And then on the Monday, when we went down to London, was at the London Stadium for West Ham Bournemouth. And I will give West Ham fans a lot of credit. They are a very bought-in fan base. They're very knowledgeable, very passionate about their team, but with how big the London Stadium is, 60,000 people, I was able to get a ticket without being a member. They didn't sell the game out. I know probably mainly because that was against Bournemouth and not like they were playing City or a top 6 team, but it just didn't have the same feel as Elland Road. None of the two did. Probably Goodison was the closest to that. But yeah, I think it's a lot more touristy, especially at London stadiums potentially and big ones where it's a little easier to get a ticket. And I don't know if you'd agree with this, Michael or Alex, but maybe part of the reason it feels so special at Elland Road 2 is because of the exclusivity right now of it, where it's 37,000 people in the venue. And you probably know there's easily double or triple the amount of people that want to get a ticket with how hard it is to get in there. So hopefully this 49ers investment can lead to some more seats and make it easier for people like us when we want to go over and travel to not have to buy a membership and maybe get single game tickets whenever we go.
Yeah, it's almost like you want them to find the right balance with that. You want them to increase the seats to the point where we can get them if we want to go and see the game, and that other people can too. And then there's a huge waiting list of people waiting on season tickets, which I think we would hope that everyone who wants a season ticket should be able to get one. I mean, that should be something that the club should absolutely be taking care of. But at the same time, you don't want the stadium to get so big that we don't sell out, or that we have empty seats, or that it detracts from the atmosphere. And I know there's a lot of concern out there about what will Elland Road be like when they improve it. And that's another reason too why everyone or most people are very strongly against rebuilding or building a new stadium or rebuilding the whole thing from scratch or relocating or any of that stuff. And I think definitely there would be some advantages to those things, but people are so connected to the atmosphere at Elland Road and how special it is that they wouldn't give that up, even if giving it up resulted in a lot of other benefits or conveniences for them. They're very connected to that atmosphere and the history of the place.
The other interesting thing, guys, to look at, I'm not sure when this 49ers investment is coming through. I know that's been something of a little bit of a talking point with whether it's Phil Hay or other guys in the media over there, but with how close they came to relegation last year and right now 15th, only a couple points above, are they really going to pour all that money in and potentially go down? I mean, I don't want to say that. Nobody in this room wants to say that, but that's the fascinating thing about the Premier League and European sports in general with the promotion relegation is you want to make stadium enhancements. You want to do all these things with money, but you're always going to have to prepare for the possibility, if you're not an established club in the Premier League quite yet, that you might go down and lose hundred millions of pounds in budget. So it'll be interesting to see when they finally decide to take the dive on that, because in my mind, I'd probably wait 1 or 2 more years to make sure they're still up at that time and get a little bit more money in their pockets.
Yeah, you'd think the focus might be on the pitch as opposed to what goes around it.
Yeah.
What do you say, Alex?
Yeah, it's just interesting, like I will dip into some podcasts of like Villa or Tottenham or Arsenal or like whoever it is, or even some of the smaller clubs like a Brentford, and they'll always say like on these like fan TV shows that they're the best away experience that they've had this year has been Elland Road because of the fans, the singing. Obviously, we know we show up big time sometimes at away stadiums. It sounds like we're at a home game. And, to Michael's point, the presence of everyone in the moment of the football match. Yeah. There is nothing else going on. Where, everybody's watching the game is something in this digital world that is, I've called it it's like a relic and how it was and it should be. And to your point, Brendan, everybody when they're, they're taking pictures of Ronaldo scoring, and sorry, I've got a toddler in the background. So
that's all right. My son's in the comments, so hi, Dad, waving in the comments.
It's a family affair here.
Yeah. Hi, Ben, by the way.
So yeah, I'll flash that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think it's a special place. But and some of the things that Brenda was saying, One Club City, I think it's the best song. Marching On Together, I think, is the best song in the Premier League. That rivals maybe only You'll Never Walk Alone with Liverpool. But being in the darkness for 16 years is something that kind of made it almost like frozen in time for a while before it got to the big commercial enterprise that is the Premier League. And it's still got a lot of that what are we at, year 3 now in the Prem. So yeah, it looks amazing. And every time, like Gier says, he walks through the ground, you kind of like from the outside, you're kind of thinking it's not that big of a deal. And then you walk in and it's like, I can't believe I'm here. It's looking at the pitch and everything. The other thing is the generational aspect of it, I think, is interesting, not just about the players that I was talking about, but like a lot of people talk about bringing their son or bringing their daughter or bringing their, it's like, this is like a piece of me. It's a piece of my history. And I'm bringing you here, and it's not like you have to like Leeds or anything, but it's a lot of people have said that, like, I'm not trying to impose my fandom on them necessarily, but it's something that happened and is passed down generation to generation. I think that's so cool. And I hope it continues.
Yeah, the whole thing about having some connection with family there really stands out to me too. As I mentioned, my mom is from Leeds. My granddad, who passed away before I was born, but is my namesake, or I'm his namesake. He was a Leeds fan, and would go to Elland Road and see games and stuff. Apparently, not that I ever had a chance to talk to him about it, but and then it was really great for me to be able to take my son with me when we went to go and see the game. And the match that we went to was the very famous give the goal match that Bielsa said that he ordered us to give a goal back to Aston Villa. So that was a unique and a special experience in its own. So not only visiting Elland Road was incredible, but actually being there for a pretty historic match, and one which resulted in Marcelo Bielsa winning the FIFA Fair Play Award for that year on behalf of the club, and to be able to have that discussion with my son, who was 10 at the time, just about fair play and about, we're talking about why is Bielsa God, that stuff like that. That's why, because he just brought such a huge amount of credibility to our club, and really not only just got us out of a rut, in terms of being constantly stuck in the championship, looking like we're going nowhere, but just how much character he brought, and sort of was I guess a salvation in a lot of ways, not only on the pitch but also off of it, for the club that had been struggling and mired in mediocrity and sort of self-doubt for so long. So yeah, Elland Road is definitely a very special place that way too, to share with families, and there is a lot of family connection there.
And maybe God's too strong of a word, I guess. I don't know. To your point, Michael, that was just so, things like that fair play and the give the goal back game, and that kind of purity. It's not like we're desperate for this. It's important, but we're not, I don't know. It was just, it was like a respect yourself, respect the game, the competition, is kind of maybe the highest priority. Your ability to respect yourself and sleep at night is, I don't know. I don't know where I'm kind of going with that, but that is just something where I think he will be in the lore. And as we move down this kind of post Bielsa world, as we're, dealing and I all rooting for Jesse Marsch and his ability to, continue to kick this team on. Yeah, I think as we continue to get away from it, I just think it wound up being okay. Hopefully he doesn't ever go to another Premier League side. And I'm glad that those rumors have slowly dissipated. of him
Yeah.
going to
Bournemouth.
Bournemouth have gone, and I didn't really want to address them the past 2 weeks that we were kind of dealing with that issue, because the mill is it's the rumor mill. But there were some reliable sources tweeting that he was having conversations. So anyways, I'm just grateful that never kind of went through. We got a couple of friends of the show, Martin and Digler, that have kind of talked about that the stadium needs some upgrading. He's jealous of Spurs. I mean, almost a lot of teams are jealous of Spurs. I think that Scum is jealous of Spurs in that way. Obviously, they got a brand new shiny toy in their stadium. I think there's a balance to be struck where it's maybe not necessarily a brand new spanking stadium that's all very corporate and shiny, etc., and maintaining kind of the architectural integrity and the history of Elland Road, I think would be cool too. And obviously we have Martin that says, I've got some immense memories, but it's archaic. Rebuild and take advantage of modern technology. Stadium and construction have moved on. We need to grow up, which is understandable. Again, a stadium that old, over, pushing 100 years old. Obviously you would want to see some upgrades, but I think we're all baseball fans in America. There's some older ballparks in this in North America, and two of my favorite to go to are Wrigley and Fenway. They're both I don't know. It feels like you're stepping into a piece of history. Same thing with horse racing, which is another old sport in upstate New York. There's a Saratoga Springs and Saratoga Racetrack, which is kind of like the fourth biggest race of the year they have up in Saratoga. And it's older. I think it's over 100 years old, and it's really awesome to go into. The only racetrack that's older is Churchill Downs, and Churchill Downs had a fire. And so it was kind of like rebuilt a lot of Churchill Downs. So, I don't know. If there's a way to kind of update it, but also maintain some of the integrity of the pitch and Elland Road as a whole, I think is cool.
Yeah.
What say you guys to the upgrades?
Yeah. What I was thinking of as well is, I think another thing that makes Elland Road so special, but also just compared to some of the other stadiums, I feel like the trend, at least in North America, is going towards when a new NFL team or a new MLB team comes out with a brand new stadium. It's all about the stadium, and it takes away from the team and the players on there. Like, we want the fancy transparent roof so that we can have sunlight come through naturally without having to open or close it. We want the biggest bar in the case of Spurs at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And part of me thinks that a lot of people do go to these events for the stadium itself. And absolutely, like, you want to see that. It's great architecture, but also just probably a really cool place to watch a match. But it takes away, in my mind, a little bit from the on-field product. And Alex, I agree with you. I've been to Wrigley. You can feel the history there when you go in there. And I don't feel Wrigley or Fenway or Elland Road or Goodison Park takes away from what's going on the pitch or on the baseball diamond or anything like that, where maybe some of these new amenities in these new stadiums start to take away from that a little bit. So it's interesting hearing people that maybe want something brand new or a lot of new technologies. Especially, I'd be curious how many of those are based in Leeds, how many are season ticket members, or how many people are like us, where we get to go once or twice in our lifetime and want it kind of to stay the same way. So it's interesting. I think there will be a balance, and maybe Everton, when they launch their new stadium in a couple of years, is the team to follow there, because Goodison Park is older than Elland Road, 1800s, and you could feel that when you were inside there. But this brand new stadium is going to be the same, if not more crazy, technological advanced than Spurs. And that's what it's supposed to be. So it'll be interesting to see how the atmosphere changes at Everton games, because they're really good at Goodison Park. So maybe that's the blueprint Leeds need to follow when they look at revamping Elland Road.
Yeah, some of the things about these old stadiums are some of the special things are, sort of like the quirks, right? The quirkiness, or the tattiness of them in some ways. And I was just, as Alex knows, I was just at Fenway in the summer, watching our Blue Jays beat up on the Red Sox. And Well, unfortunately, it was the night after the one where they blew them away. It was like 27
Oh, the
or whatever.
crazy,
But
yeah, almost the
yeah, it was
30
the night
run
after
game.
that. We still won, so it was great. But yeah, like it just to go there and experience that stadium was incredible. And I think there is certainly a draw to going to see a stadium, whether it's because it's very old and famous for that reason, or because it's very new and technologically advanced. I don't feel that in this case it necessarily took away from the sport. Like I was there to see the Jays play, but I was there to see Fenway, but it didn't stop me from cheering on the Jays as I ordinarily would, at an away game. So you got to be a little not quite as careful, I guess, as you do in in Britain, for example. But you have to be a little careful. You can't get too lippy with the lovely Bostonians. But but it was it was a great experience to do that. And Elland Road, despite its tattiness, it does feel like a special place. But I have to agree with the comments that it definitely needs some updating. And certainly I think when you look, I mean, even the newest stand, the East stand is, even though some of the facilities in it are fairly updated and new, and it looks all right, the seating at the lower level is very, very cramped. There's no leg room. People really don't like that aspect of it. So I mean, if you're gonna start looking at expanding and changing things, there are some things that you can look at without necessarily stripping down or taking away the character of the stadium. There's very clear, obvious improvements you can make. The other stands, I mean, they need to get torn down and rebuilt. I think obviously they want to bring them up to being the same height as the East stand, so that it's sort of even all the way around. Although the only issue with that is that the South stand is very close. I don't know if anyone sort of you'd know this, Brendan, because you would have seen it. It's very close to the road. So
Yes.
if you're going to go up, you have to go back. And if
Mhm.
you go back, you're going onto the road. So do you build over the road? Can you do that? There are residences and businesses immediately across the road that would be encroached upon if you were to do that. So there's going to be some trickiness involved, I think, in expanding that part of the ground. I'm not sure what they will do about it. Maybe it'll just sort of be a bit of a sort of a wonky lower side. I guess what they kind of have, they have two sides that are shorter than the others at in some other stadiums too. St. James Park is a good
Mhm.
example where it's not at all symmetrical in terms of the heights of the stand. So maybe that's what happens. I would love us to maybe do something like what you see. I was thinking of La Bombonera in Brazil, for example. It's there's stadiums there in other places too. I'm trying to remember what they are now, where instead of having like a stand, you almost have like a vertical with maybe all your boxes are on the one side. So yeah, I think there are options there for sure. I don't know what they'll do with it, but obviously updating needs to happen.
Let's catch up on the comments real quick. Years ago, I remember that Wolves came to.
By the way, sorry, I
came to
said
Elland.
Brazil. I meant Argentina, but La Bombonera, by the way.
Okay.
My apologies.
Diggler says years ago, I remember when Wolves came and they would sing our song, "We Love You, Wolves, Wolves, Wolves." I mean, come on, fans.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of well, I'll say pathetic, I guess. No offense if there's any Wolves fans watching. As a child, one of my brothers would take me to Rotterdam, and the other brother would take me to Sheffield Wednesday. But as soon as I got my own cash, I was off the train to see Elland Road, and that was 1984. Diggler comes back and says, "I like the ground. I think a ground like Spurs would attract big players." I want to talk a little bit about that because I think I think that's a separate issue. Like I think when you talk about attracting players, you might be talking about the training aspect, and so that's a Thorpe Arch thing. I don't know if you gentlemen have been to Thorpe Arch. When I look at it from social media perspective or pictures online, it looks like the weight room looks crowded. I'll say that. Kind of looks, hate to be too crass or anything like that, but it reminds me of my high school gym, weight room. So, it just looks very, very crowded. So I think probably Thorpe Arch needs some updating as far as attracting, the world's best players. Although I think the technology and the staff are probably pretty good, but I can't speak to that. Obviously, Ronaldo's comments I thought was interesting about how he said obviously one of the most vain player of all time, but talking about the technology at Manchester United was there when he was 20. It was the same stuff. So that was interesting to hear him say. Our academy is great, and we continue to attract, good top talent. I think it's also, I like the investment in youth, and we might touch a little bit on that. And that's, I think, going to be a big piece of Leeds United if we continue to climb up the ladder. I think all sports are, a young person's game, game. So I don't know. I think we have to continue to be a destination for people to grow their career. I'll be upset if they change the location, but not out of date shape and rank and low grade facilities. Okay. Agree on that. Let's see here. Favorite Elland Road memory is a seat breaking on me. The West Stand lower than it was a few years ago. I went to sit down and fell right through.
Damn.
6-4 to Preston that evening. Sorry, my friend Matthew. I like what they've done outside the ground because they have statues, massive pictures to players. If there's a building that hosts dinners and stuff, it would be nice. So what do you guys say to the training? Did you, Brendan, were you able to visit Thorpe Arch? I don't know if you were, and Michael, have you ever visited Thorpe Arch, or what's your take on it just from, the pictures online and stuff you've seen through the social media?
No, I didn't get up to Thorpe Arch, unfortunately. I know that has also been a talking point for pouring more money into it to make it a little bit more modern than it currently is. At the end of the day, though, I think obviously once that Leeds are even more firmly established in the Premier League, and it might take a couple seasons of some close calls of being relegated, and whether that's finishing between 17th to 12th and it being a tight table or not, for them to be here 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Honestly, the team that I would follow the model of, and they've done a really good job of it, and I know they may not attract big players yet. Maybe that's part because of their budget, but Brighton, just the fact that they came up, had several years where they were nearly relegated. They have a beautiful new stadium and whatnot, but now you see them at the beginning of the year before Graham Potter left. I'm still convinced if Potter stayed that they might be top 4 right now. Brighton, they just built a such good team, attracted a lot of players, and a lot of quality young signings too that they were able to bring in from across the world. So I think the signings will come as long as they stay, obviously, in the top flight. They're there for a couple of years, and then you start slowly creeping up the table, and eventually teams aren't coming knocking on your door for your players and essentially acting like a farm team for people to come. All right, you're going to grow a couple players. We're going to buy them off of you.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll be the other way around. For Leeds stay up, they get good. They're finishing in the top half consistently, more and more money. That's how every team at the top 6, 7, 8 right now are doing their business. So yeah, I mean, it all plays a part. Better facilities, better training, better technology. But at the end of the day, it's all about staying in the top flight, getting more money, and then attracting more players, and that will come.
Yeah. Going back to what I was just sort of discussing before, and I was distracted because I was looking up what the other stadium was, and then I said Brazil instead of Argentina. I don't know why I did that, but anyway, the Bombonera in Buenos Aires is a good example, as I was talking about having sort of a flat side. One of the sides is flat. The other one is the Bay Arena, where Bayer Leverkusen play. They have one stand that's flat as well. So you've got a stand of seating, and then you've got this area up top where your boxes and offices and stuff are. And I think that might be an option for that one side of the stand. Where we're not able to do 2 tiers of actual stadium seating. Anyway,
what was the Bay Arena you said?
I was looking it up at the time and I couldn't remember which stadium it was, but
what was you said the Bay Arena?
The Bay Arena there? Where Bayer Leverkusen play in Germany.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, let me see if I can pull this up.
Which is, I think, an older state. It's not super old, like 50s or 60s or something, the stadium, but there's one side where you have seats, but then you've got all your other buildings up top,
right behind the goalpost.
Now
the net.
Now, isn't Now, this is sort of an interesting question for you. The 49ers, their stadium is like that too, isn't it?
It is, yeah. They have
Yeah.
they have one side that's primarily boxes,
Yeah.
and suites and whatnot, and then there is a little bit of a lower stand for fans to sit on. But yes, it is very much like that. So if that happens at Elland Road too, that'd be quite fascinating to see both teams with similar looking venues.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And obviously, if they're involved, and it seems like that's one of the key areas where they want to be involved,
Mhm.
is in stadium expansion and improving that side of things in terms of Leeds United as a club and as a business. Sorry, everyone, but it is
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah.
And obviously it has to do business in order to improve itself on the pitch. So let's be honest about that. But yeah, there you go. On the left hand side of that one picture you're looking at there, you can see there's sort of boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
doing
they
something
kinda
like that,
stacked
sort of
it.
more vertical building side there to get the height up to match the rest, so it's not quite so wonky, but then making sure that you have the seating all the way around the other sides up to the full 2 levels the same way you do in the East Stand presently. I think if you do that, you end up getting your 55 to 60,000 people
Mhm.
in. You can also potentially then sort of more centralize where the boxes are rather than having them distributed in other places like around the other stands. You can have them more centralized in sort of one area. There you go. You've got your corporate area that's sort of the second story of the one stand, and then everything else close to the pitch around the lower area is going to obviously be fans, more diehards, and people that aren't there to sip cocktails while they watch the match. So, which is, of course, that's the atmosphere that we want to preserve.
We got about 13 or so minutes left. What's your guys' take on the second half of the year? What's your Brendan? I'm interested in. I almost said Brendan. I'm Aronson. Brendan, I'm interested in your take on Jesse Marsh thus far. First half. I guess it's not officially the first half of the season, but before this international break. And are you fully bought into Marsh ball and some of that stuff? What do you think? Not to beat the dead horse, but what do you think Leeds need to bring in the January window, if any positions? So, yeah, just kind of like review first half, preview second half, and then any kind of incoming position strength that we need.
Yeah, I want to be bought into Marsh Ball, and I think all three of us here do, and I think the whole fan base does because you've seen some moments where everything clicks and you get results like you did 3-0 at Chelsea earlier on in the year, or crazy comebacks against Bournemouth when you're going to be able to score. The interesting thing is, I think the last couple weeks of the unofficial first half showed that Leeds can score goals. There's no doubt about that. It feels like the system offensively is slowly coming together, and they accidentally stumbled into something potentially really good with Willie Nanto being able to come in, Somerville at the end too, which sucks because he's taken Sinistera's spot, and I really enjoyed watching him when he was healthy. But at the end of the day, the reason why they didn't end up beating Spurs and so many other matches this season because they concede way too much. Again, they're just lucky that they're scoring almost as much as conceding, so their goal differential not nearly as bad as last season. So at the height of my list, definitely a striker again because they got to figure out the Patrick Bamford situation. He can't stay healthy. I love the guy. I bought his kit after the first full season up, 17 goals. It was an incredible first season for him, silence his critics, but he can't stay healthy. Can't be relied upon. And even the stretches he has been healthy, guys, like the fact that he missed that penalty against Arsenal in a game where they probably should have won had he scored that was a killer. And so many other opportunities I can think of. The Palace game where he could have made it 2-0 and didn't do it. And there's others that definitely are escaping my mind right now. But a striker, and something needs to be changed defensively, whether that is Marsh's tactics, anything needs to be changed defensively to not concede as much. Because in my mind, if they start conceding less and keep up the goals they've been scoring, obviously that's the easy formula to wins, but really in my mind, that's all it's really coming down to at this point. If they didn't concede as much against Spurs, they would have had 3 points there, and a couple others. So it'll be interesting. The start of the second half is going to be really tough. I mean, we all know Man City on the first festive fixture on the 28th, then at Newcastle, which is always tough. And in my mind, Newcastle are very much going to be right around the mix for top 4. And then even West Ham, I know they've struggled, but all the past years, other than Harrison's hat trick last year, playing West Ham has always been a bit of a challenge for Leeds too under Bielsa in those matches. So if they can get through with a point, maybe sneak out a win against West Ham, then the fixtures lighten up a little bit for a while, and hopefully they can start to make some hay there.
Yeah, this goes back to a long way with me, Alex. You'll have heard this over and over and over again. We need a left back, and that's no slight on on Pascal Struck, who's done a wonderful job there. But the problem is that when you move him over there, it weakens the back line. So for me, it's the back line that needs improvement first. I agree that we do need a striker because we don't necessarily have anyone that we can rely on there consistently. Rodrigo has done very well. History doesn't really fill me with confidence that he'll be able to continue that level of output over the course of a whole season. He could well prove me wrong. I would be more than happy if he did. But I don't think we can rely on that. That's a huge risk to take. And if at some point in time the goals dry up, but the defensive frailties don't, we're going to find ourselves in a lot of trouble really fast. So, we're already looking over our shoulders as it is. Back when we did the window closing episode, Alex, I said, I think if we don't get a center forward of some sort and a decent left back, we're going to be down in the relegation dogfight. I don't know if we will get relegated, but we'll be in the fight. If we do get a center forward and a left back, I think we'll be comfortable, right? Maybe not necessarily top half or whatever, but at least comfortable. And right now it's not comfortable because we didn't get those things. It's not as uncomfortable, I guess, as it could be. It doesn't feel as uncomfortable as last season did, even though the results and where we are in terms of points and everything are very, very similar. It doesn't quite feel like we have the same. I guess we're not necessarily getting the points, but it doesn't feel like we're running through mud this season as much as it did last season. That might be it. And we don't feel like we're just a moment away from a full collapse in the same way that we did at points last season. But we're clearly have not improved enough despite the incomings. And there are certain areas that I think we just need to improve, and center forward and left back for me are the first priorities, although we might want to look at getting something at center back. And I think longer term, we're going to need something else in central midfield as well, which again is to say nothing about players like Adams and Rocca, who are doing very, very well, both of them. And Adams has just been absolutely outstanding at this World Cup. Is making a huge name for himself on the world stage right now, and probably doubling his value. Whatever we paid for him, I think he's worth double that now easily. But we do have other players in there that maybe aren't being included, won't be included going forward, haven't been able to perform. We're talking, people like Matthias Klick. He's not going to be around forever. Maybe he leaves in January potentially. So we're going to need some central midfielders as well to fill that out, especially if Adams or Rocca are going to miss matches. We know Adams is going to miss the next one. So we need players there too. So the job is nowhere near done, despite the fact we brought in a number of players last time. But first priorities for me, center forward and left back.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm not sure where you guys had them finishing the year, if you did a prediction show or anything like that, but 15th right now, I have them finishing in 14th on my table. And like you said, Michael, if you don't improve that, it is going to get scary again, just like last year, down towards the end. Hopefully not take it down to the final day, but I can see them still being in a scrap, maybe until 2-3 weeks out, and getting a result that sees them over the line for safety, kind of like Southampton the last couple of years. I have them 14th at the end of the year, but yeah, those first 3 fixtures that you're seeing on your screen there, they'll be lucky to get 3 points out of that if they can find a win. Lucky to get 1, maybe. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, looks like so. We've got a couple of tune-up games: Elche and Real Sociedad. And then we have City, Newcastle, West Ham. Cardiff is the cup game, and then Aston Villa. So, yeah, those are going to be. That's a tough fixture list. you just think about a year ago, Newcastle was, you'd probably put 3 points down, and this, PIF Saudi investment fund takeover has really been. It's been difficult, I think, at least for the rest of the year. You've now almost got a big 7. It's interesting to see if one of the traditional big 6, probably not, but if they do kind of lose their place in a way, and maybe are not come kind of back to the pack. It's hard to say that, but it's just interesting to me. You're literally looking at Chelsea, who's been taken over because of obviously the oligarch that was in charge of them, and the war in Ukraine, and kind of the crimes that he was committing. So Chelsea's been sold now. We're looking, and we've got 2 possible other big 6 transfers, in the fact that Liverpool has been now openly for sale by Fenway. And then Scum is obviously for sale, or rumored to be for sale, and Apple might take them over. So it's a competitive league, and it takes a lot of money to compete. And yes, we need continued investment, and that's why just those 2 players are massive for us. Pascal's been putting in a shift all season, but he has limitations. He's very good defensively. Obviously, we'd like to see somebody that can run that channel and is a traditional left back, especially the way how we play narrow. That I posted Michael's take on what do you mean Leeds played narrow. It's a great clip. I suggest it's on my Twitter and probably on Michael's Twitter as well. Of us compressed all on one side. Tottenham didn't wind up scoring from this particular thing that we were breaking down, but. Yeah. Anyways, punchline is we have to continue to get a left back. Rasmus Christensen is now home because the Danes have gone home from the World Cup.
Got hooked at halftime today.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought he played well, but he will be focusing on LUFC now. So that's hopefully a good thing for us. And then, Tyler Adams is continuing to be, he's continuing to look like a steal as he flourishes in the World Cup and protects really the American international team from goals that they have not conceded from open play yet in the World Cup. And a lot of that has to do with Tyler Adams. So, and obviously we need a striker. Depending on the youth of Somerville and Nanto, and I think we need somebody to finish the dinner, so to speak. Yeah. So the striker is so important, especially the way we defend. We have to continue to be able to score goals and get on top of teams. As far as my crystal ball on Jesse, I'm a fellow American. You guys are fellow North Americans. The growth of the sport in this continent is important, and it's important that players players and coaches from the, lack of a better phrase, new world of football, not just the South American, but the North American side, because there's athletes here. There's athletes in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, but Mexico's kind of always been a good footballing side. It's important that Jesse has success, and so I'm biased in both ways, and I think he's obviously growing and learning. But to Michael's point, one time you texted this on our thread. This is not the league to learn in always. Yeah. This league will punish you. I'll be rooting for him, but my crystal ball is whether he stays. I'm just gonna say it's broken. I can't. There's nothing in there. I can't. I wanna say yes with every fiber of my being. He will be here. He will at Leeds. He will finish the season. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight because of a lot of the factors that I just said. So yeah.
Brendan will appreciate the reference. Actually, I referenced Donaldson. It says not the Tri League.
Yes, right? Exactly. It's not the Tri League. It's to get it done league.
Yeah, to get it done league. And that's the same thing that goes for us. I just wanted to go back to something you said just quickly, and I know it's not exactly football related, Alex. I wasn't sure if I heard it correctly or whatever, but sort of being the legal liability guy around here, I just want to say Abramovich was not committing any crimes. Just make sure we're talking about Putin committing crimes and Abramovich being a Russian oligarch linked to. Yeah, okay. Just to be clear, no one's accusing Roman Abramovich of any criminal activity.
Thank you. It was thorny. It was thorny there.
Yeah.
Not accusing you.
Just to be clear, but yes, he did.
However,
He
it
was
was
forced to sell as part of
yeah.
the as part of the crackdown on Russian oligarchs as a result of their invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, so I agree. I think that I would love nothing more than for Jesse Marsh to succeed. If he succeeds, it means Leeds are succeeding. That's what I want to see. I don't understand people who sort of cheerlead for their manager to fail because they don't like who they are personally. That being said, if he's not getting it done, then of course, so maybe it's time to move on, right? But I think he's got to get a fair shake at it. And I would love nothing more. Whoever the manager is, would love nothing more for them to succeed with Leeds United, because it means that we're succeeding, and that's what we all want to see. In terms of the growth of the game over here too, I think it's important because what we just see now, Leeds United are getting talked about all the time because of the World Cup and how well our players are doing right now, and that's going to be good for the growth of our club, because the more people are watching and paying attention and getting bought in as North Americans, like all three of us are, the better it's going to be for the club overall. People are buying shirts and other things and investing their money into the club, and that will help us grow and get better. So whatever money we make off the pitch, we can then invest on the pitch. So I'm all for that.
Have you guys bought anything yet? Bought any Leeds United swag for 20? I like this kit. I'm holding out for the holiday Christmas season to see if I get anything. Yeah, if not, then I'll get a few items. Have you guys gotten anything?
The home kit's really nice. My wife surprised me with one right at the start of the season, and Brendan Aronson's on the back. So awesome. Even though we spell Brendan differently, it's still Brendan, pronounced the exact same. Yeah. So got to support him there. And the rationale for it is he's probably the closest thing to a Canadian that will ever play on Leeds. So gotta support him there.
Not far, right?
Yeah.
Medford, New Jersey. It's not that far.
Driving distance.
It is.
All right, gentlemen, the Canucks to the north of me. This is beautiful because they are literally in Toronto, and I am south of the border in America, as the screen suggests. So you guys were great. Please like, subscribe. I don't do this enough. Like, subscribe, comment, engage. I guess you turn the notifications on, etc. It's a small channel. It's growing. But we appreciate your guys' engagement, and marching
push,
on together.
Smash,
Leeds.
Touch, tickle, whatever you're gonna do with that like and subscribe button, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, whatever you can do, just hit it, and I thank you.
Well,
and then Brendan, would love to have you back.
As long as
I'd love to have you back. So
I'd love to come back.
This continues. Okay, awesome.
That was great.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
No, thanks for having me on, guys. Right. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, boys. And good night, everybody. Talk to you soon. See you. Hopefully, we'll do something soon before the restart of the season. Bye.
Bye.